make it very clear that there's obviously, from all of the signs, all the facts, all the deductions we can make, there's no evidence that there is some sort of organized or widespread effort to defraud the election. We saw chaos, confusion, that only just heightened all of the attention and the misunderstandings that were going on, the distrust. And so my report really kind of tries to express just the spiraling out of control that happened there at times. And there's plenty of blame to point in both parties' directions, but I just find it particularly troubling to me. And it was something that I really wanted to show in this report, that my party, some people within it, some people representing it, made this critical mistake in judgment, and it caused more harm than good.
Last month, the Michigan Senate Oversight Committee released a report on the 2020 election, saying it, quote, found no evidence of widespread or systematic fraud in Michigan's prosecution of the 2020 election. The committee, chaired by Republican State Senator Ed McBroom, released the report after conducting nearly 30 hours of public hearings, listening to testimony from 87 witnesses and reviewing more than 400 pages of testimony. Former President Donald Trump called the report a, quote, cover-up and an attempt to hide the truth. Staff writer at The Atlantic, Tim Alberta, profiled Senator McBroom in his latest piece titled "The Senator Who Decided to Tell the Truth." And Tim joins us now, along with national political reporter for Axios, Jonathan Swan. Good morning to you both. Tim, you wrote this of Committee Chairman McBroom, quote, his committee interviewed scores of witnesses, subpoenaed and reviewed thousands of pages of documents, dissected the procedural mechanics of Michigan's highly decentralized election system, and scrutinized the most trafficked claims about corruption at the state's ballot box in November. McBroom's conclusion hit Lansing like a meteor. It was all a bunch of nonsense. McBroom told you, quote, I can't make people believe me. All I can hope is that people use their discernment and judgment to look at the facts I've laid out for them, and then look at these theories out there and ask the question, does any of this make sense? Tim, it is such a fascinating and important piece. Let's take a step back and talk about Senator McBroom himself, who he is, where he is on the political spectrum, and why he thought it important to take these 8 months to develop this report.
Yeah, Willie, you know, it's interesting. This is a guy who has a lot of credibility with Republicans, with conservatives, not only in his caucus, but in his district up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He's a dairy farmer by trade. In fact, he still operates his family's 100-year-old dairy farm. And this is a guy who's a conservative's conservative. He got into politics largely animated by the issue of abortion and wanting to protect farmers. And this is somebody who voted for Donald Trump, who talked to me at length about how happy he was with the policy outcomes of the Trump administration and how worried he has been about the early days of the Biden administration. So this is not some rhino. This is not somebody who's sort of soft and who's been, you know, attempting to undermine Trump from within his own party. This is a guy at the same time, though, Willie, who's really known as sort of a choir boy. Literally, he directs his church choir up in the Upper Peninsula. And when you talk to Republican colleagues of his, there was always a sense that if anybody was going to really shoot straight on this issue and was going to sort of pull no punches and get to the bottom of this and tell the truth, no matter how inconvenient it may be, then Ed McBroom was going to be that guy. And for that reason, frankly, there was some nervousness when he took on this investigation, because a lot of Republicans knew that he might not broadcast exactly what they were hoping he would.
So, Tim, I guess the question now is this choir boy dairy farmer going to be censored by the party? Is he going to be driven from the ranks? Is he going to be primaried? Or there are already protests against him for actually telling the plain and obvious truth, the same truth that William Barr said when he was asked to investigate these claims, the same truth that Rudy Giuliani was forced to say when he finally got in federal court and said, no, Your Honor, this is not a fraud case. The truth, time and again, that Republicans win under oath, and even Trump's own attorneys had to tell judges, no, there's no widespread voter fraud. Is he going to now get thrashed politically for telling the truth?
Joe, he'll be thrashed politically. He's already being thrashed politically, starting in his own district. This is a guy who represents a very conservative part of the state of Michigan, and he's dealing with constituents and family, friends, people who he's known his entire life who are attacking him, telling him that he's been bought off by China, that he is in league with the deep state. And frankly, a censuring from his own party is sort of pretty low on his list of concerns right now. I mean, while we talked, he was nodding in the direction of his rifle cabinet in his house, talking to me about the calls in the middle of the night threatening him and his family. And so I don't know that this is a guy who's nearly as concerned about some of the political ramifications, sort of in the abstract, as he is about what might happen when the people who are so convinced that this election was stolen and who believe that there is an illegitimate Democrat in office right now and that they are approaching the brink of civil war, which he and I talked about in the piece. He talked about people he's encountering in his district who are talking about it's time to rise up. It's time perhaps for a legitimate civil conflict here. Those are the things that Senator McBroom talked to me about that are really urgent for him. I don't know that he's terribly concerned about being stripped of some committee assignment or being punished by politicians in Lansing, because ultimately he's term limited. He'll only be there for a couple more years anyway. He's much more worried about where this is taking all of us in the country, in his community, the people he knows who he feels like are perhaps lost permanently to these conspiracy theories.